If Rick C-137 lost Our Morty tomorrow, who actually survives in that role? Not who gets the most fan art, not who looks coolest holding a portal gun. Who functions next to Rick when the mission stops being theoretical? Today we're running a canon-compliant draft of 9 Morty variants who could legitimately step into that partnership, plus one who absolutely should not. We're ignoring composite versions, hypothetical fusions, and any what if Our Morty but with confidence thought experiments. Only real, distinct, recruitable Mortys, variants with screen time, personalities with precedent. Let's draft the roster. Subscribe for the next twist. New drops twice a week. What if I told you number 9 goes to a Morty who'd rather dismantle a corrupt system than learn to navigate it? At number 9, we have Slick Morty, the reformer, the idealist, the Morty who looked at the Citadel's corruption and decided the answer was structural change, not personal escape. His strength is moral clarity. In a universe that constantly asks you to compromise, Slick refuses to normalize the rot. He'd rather fix a broken system than learn to breathe its poisoned air. That conviction can anchor a team when everyone else is rationalizing their way into worse decisions. He keeps the mission's soul intact when expedient starts looking reasonable. The weakness? Speed. Slick wants the right answer, not the fast one. When Rick needs a quiet back-channel deal to extract someone from a hostile dimension, Slick wants to address the underlying power dynamic first. That's noble. It's also slow. In a partnership where seconds decide outcomes, ideology can become expensive overhead. He's best deployed when you have time to do things correctly. Next to Rick, that window is rare. Number 8 belongs to the Morty who wins negotiations by refusing to pretend he's powerless. Big Morty is our number 8. Street credibility, physical presence, and the kind of negotiating instinct that activates when everyone else's nerve fails. Big Morty's value is gravitational. He refuses to be dismissed, even in rooms designed to make Mortys invisible. That's not arrogance. It's survival strategy crystallized into posture. When a deal is collapsing and leverage is everything, Big Morty finds the angle no one else saw and pushes until the room reorients around it. He doesn't win through brilliance. He wins through refusing to accept that losing was inevitable. The risk is friction. Put 2 dominant personalities in a confined space, and they'll spend 15 minutes proving points neither needed to make. Rick doesn't take well to challenges that aren't framed as jokes, and Big Morty doesn't joke his way through disrespect. The partnership works when stakes are high and egos are suppressed. Outside that zone, it's volatile. He's excellent in crisis, combustible near pride. At 7, we have the Morty no one notices, until 12 critical systems would have failed without him. Number 7 is left-handed Morty, the quiet finisher. No spotlight chasing, no dramatic declarations, just the steady accumulation of necessary work no one else volunteered for. His strength is operational invisibility. He notices the details others skim past. The backup generator that's been making a weird noise for 2 days, the supply crate that's lighter than it should be, the door mechanism that'll fail in another dozen cycles. He doesn't wait for permission to fix these things. He just handles them. While everyone else is focused on the primary objective, left-handed Morty is preventing the 12 small failures that would have killed the mission 3 hours later. He's not built to headline a rescue operation. He's built to ensure the rescue doesn't unravel because someone forgot to check the oxygen scrubbers. If you've ever survived on margins, on the difference between adequate and just barely enough, you already understand how valuable that is. Rick would forget to thank him. The mission would remember. Comment below your top pick. Who replaces Our Morty? If you think empathy is non-negotiable in a partner, number 6 will make you reconsider. This is Lizard Morty. Adaptation as survival protocol, efficiency as religion. Lizard Morty operates on a reptilian cost-benefit analysis that most mammals can't sustain. He wastes nothing, not breath, not motion, not emotional energy, on outcomes he can't influence. When the environment turns hostile, he doesn't fight the new parameters, he becomes compatible with them. Drop him in a toxic biome and he'll identify the 18-minute window where atmospheric pressure makes survival possible. His strength is ruthless practicality. Empathy isn't his primary fuel, which makes him brutal in exactly the right way when hard calls need making. The weakness is that same lack of empathy makes him blunt in the wrong moments. He'll optimize the mission without noticing he's optimizing a person out of it. Next to Rick, this is strangely functional. Rick already carries enough guilt for 2 people. Lizard Morty handles the math. Rick handles the moral aftermath. In hostile biomes, literal or social, Lizard keeps you breathing long enough to regret your choices later. Number 5 goes to the Morty who turns Rick's chaos into something you can actually run twice. 5 is Glasses Morty, the organizer, the systems architect, the Morty who looked at chaos and built a filing system. His entire value proposition is reducing entropy. Rick operates in bursts of manic genius that leave debris fields of half-finished plans, unresolved complications, and situations that probably work themselves out. This isn't glamorous work. No one writes songs about the guy who remembered to label the artillery before the firefight. But that's the difference between "we got away with it once" and "we have a procedure now." Next to Rick, that's not about glory, it's about velocity you can defend. How fast can you move when you're not relearning which lever does what every single time? The limitation. Glasses, Morty needs stable enough systems to organize. When everything is burning and the plan is improvise or die, his skill set idles. He's phenomenal at making good situations excellent and decent situations survivable. He struggles when survival itself is still theoretical. Rick provides the chaos. Glasses provides the aftermath where that chaos becomes deployable. What if the fourth best option isn't a single Morty, but an entire class that learned to function without a Rick at all? The Rickless Mortys. These are the Mortys who learn to function without a genius on retainer, without the backup plan that shows up drunk at 3 a.m. with a solution pulled from 8 dimensions over. They barter, they fix, they stretch the last working part an extra 300 miles because no one else is coming to help. What makes them valuable next to Rick is that they don't wait for rescue. When Rick spirals into a side obsession or gets trapped in a time-dilated negotiation with himself, the Rickless keep the mission operational. They trade for outcomes, they patch, improvise, and broker deals with whatever's available because dependency was never an option. Their strength is resourcefulness under scarcity. Their weakness is that same self-sufficiency can read as distance. They're not used to coordinating, they're used to surviving alone and comparing notes later. Rick doesn't need a partner who asks permission, but he does need one who tells him when the plan changed. The Rickless are excellent as operational redundancy, the backup system that activates when the primary goes offline. They're not competing with Rick for control. They're ensuring there's still a mission to return to when he's done reinventing particle physics in a basement somewhere. At 3, we have the Morty, who doesn't just survive Rick's messes, he makes sure they stop happening in the first place. 3 is Campaign Manager Morty, the ops brain, the strategist who doesn't just read the room but rewrites it before anyone notices. His skill is social engineering at scale. He understands timing, optics, and the 20 micro-decisions that turn bad idea into only option. Campaign Manager Morty doesn't need to be the smartest person present. He needs to know which smart person to put in front of which audience at which moment. He moves the target to the right height before anyone pulls the trigger. Next to Rick, this is transformational. Rick's genius comes with a chaos tax. Burned bridges, alienated allies, factions that would have helped but got insulted in the process. Campaign Manager Morty absorbs that tax. He smooths the edges. He makes sure the mission stops bleeding from 1,000 tiny cuts Rick didn't even notice he was making. When Rick needs a facility that banned him 4 years ago, Campaign Manager Morty has already rebuilt that relationship through 3 intermediary contacts Rick doesn't know exist. The danger is misplaced trust. Campaign Manager Morty is wired to believe in people, to see the best case coalition, to think everyone's reachable if you frame it correctly. That optimism is his fuel and his vulnerability. He'll extend faith to people who can't wait to spend it, and he won't see the betrayal coming because he's too busy designing the reconciliation. He makes Rick's chaos sustainable. He just can't always make it safe. Number 2 is the Morty who looked at the toxic dynamic and said no early enough to mean it. Healthy Morty, the boundary setter, the Morty who looked at the toxic patterns and said no early enough to mean it. This version emerged when Morty literally detoxed his worst traits, his most self-destructive impulses, his tolerance for being diminished. What remained was clarity. Healthy Morty doesn't absorb abuse as the cost of belonging. He doesn't rationalize cruelty as complexity. When Rick crosses a line, Healthy Morty names it immediately, which forces better decisions before they compound into disasters. The value here is course correction in real time. Most Mortys wait until the resentment is structural before pushing back. Healthy Morty refuses nonsense at the threshold, which means the duo stops spiraling and starts steering. Rick's worst impulses need resistance early when they're still reversible. By the time most Mortys speak up, Rick's already committed to the bit. Healthy Morty keeps the train on the rails. The limitation is that he needs visible rails. He's strongest when the right choice is identifiable, when there's a clear line between functional and destructive. He struggles in the gray when every option is stained, when survival requires compromise, when the healthy choice is also the fatal one. In a clean fight, Healthy Morty is unbeatable. In the kind of moral sewage Rick wades through regularly, his clarity can become paralysis. He won't make the ugly call, which means Rick has to, which reintroduces exactly the dynamic Healthy Morty was supposed to fix. Number 1 is Cop Morty. This isn't about the badge or the authority or the Citadel politics. It's about what the job built into him, the ability to turn crisis into steps, panic into timing, chaos into a sequence of actions that produce survivable outcomes. Cop Morty's defining trait is operational calm under degrading conditions. When the situation breaks, his voice gets shorter and his decisions get cleaner. He doesn't freeze, doesn't spiral, doesn't waste seconds on blame or despair. He moves to the next action. That's not training, that's temperament reinforced by repetition until it's reflex. Next to Rick, this is the partnership multiplier no other Morty provides. Rick is a genius who operates best when he doesn't have to manage everything simultaneously. The plan, the execution, the contingencies, and the emotional weather of everyone around him. Cop Morty removes half that load. He doesn't need Rick to tell him what bad looks like or when to pull the trigger on Plan C. He reads the deterioration and adjusts before Rick has to. Rick can focus on the impossible problem because Cop Morty is already handling the possible ones. The risk, the only real risk, is that Cop Morty's instinct for control can clash with Rick's instinct for chaos. When Rick wants to break the system and Cop Morty wants to stabilize it, they're pulling in opposite directions, but that tension is productive more often than it's destructive. It's the difference between Rick does whatever and Rick does whatever within a framework that won't collapse. Cop Morty doesn't make Rick better. He makes Rick scalable. Field ready, mission steady, built for the seconds that decide outcomes. That's your number one. And then there's the Morty who doesn't belong in this draft at all. President Morty. Evil Morty. The one who looked at the entire structure and chose demolition. He doesn't fail the criteria because he's incapable. He fails because he's solving a different problem. Every other Morty on this list is negotiating terms within Rick's economy. How to survive the missions, how to manage the chaos, how to stay functional inside a partnership that's structurally uneven. Evil Morty isn't negotiating. He's exiting the economy entirely. His project was never about being a better partner to Rick. It was about escaping the reality where partnership with Rick is necessary. He doesn't want better treatment within the system. He wants to be outside the system's jurisdiction. That's not collaboration, that's secession. And his methodology disqualifies him even if his goals didn't. Evil Morty climbs people like ladder rungs and kicks them out once he's cleared the height. He weaponizes trust, then discards the people who gave it to him. That's not ruthlessness in service of a shared mission, that's ruthlessness in service of a solo extraction that leaves everyone else in the rubble. Rick C-137 doesn't need a Morty who's counting down to betrayal, he needs someone who's still in the foxhole when the math gets ugly. Evil Morty was never in the foxhole. He was behind you, calculating the exact moment your cover becomes his exit route. Every other variant on this list has a theory of coexistence with Rick. Evil Morty has a theory of escape from Rick. That's not a partnership failure, it's a philosophical rejection. He's not the wrong pick because he's too dangerous. He's the wrong pick because he's not picking at all. Wrong draft, wrong thesis, wrong Morty by design. That's the board. 9 variants who could actually do the job, each with a different theory of survival, and one Morty who stopped trying entirely. This is the Morty fiction. If you've ever thought about alternative Ricks, watch our video to find out whether they're real. I'll see you in the next loop.